So imagine this. What if the biggest fight in a Hollywood courtroom, isn't really about the usual things, money or fame, or even who's telling the truth?
Yeah.
What if it boils down to just one single subpoena? One side says it's totally routine, standard procedure, but the other? They're calling it pure harassment.
That definitely sets the stage.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. We take a whole stack of information, sift through it, and pull out the most important bits, the key insights for you.
That's the mission.
And today, we are diving into a really fascinating legal skirmish. Our sources suggest this could actually flip an entire case upside down. It's one of those stories where seemingly small legal steps, they can escalate fast.
Right, into thunder, as you said. And the legal process itself kind of becomes the main event, part of the drama.
Exactly. This isn't just about reading legal documents. It's about two really strong conflicting viewpoints and a judge who has to figure out the intent behind it all.
A tough spot to be in.
We're going to explore why Justin Baldoni's team is insisting this is necessary, why Isabela Ferrer's team feels it's punitive, like punishment. And what's really on the line here, beyond just the courtroom battle.
Okay, let's get into it.
So let's start right at the beginning. The conflict, this subpoena showdown. You've got Isabela Ferrer. She played the younger version of the main character in It Ends With Us.
Familiar name.
And then you have Justin Baldoni's defense team. Now, the sources we looked at show that Ferrer initially did comply with the subpoena. She handed over communications to one side. Seems straightforward.
Right, initially. But then everything shifted pretty dramatically when Baldoni's defense decided to issue its own subpoena to her.
Ah, a second one.
Exactly. And that seems to be the trigger point. That's when what might have looked like a standard legal request it escalated, became a major point of contention.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. If she already gave information, why is Ferrer fighting this second subpoena so hard? Why try to keep her distance now? What changed?
Well, according to the filings, Ferrer's team is leaving no room for doubt. They're calling it harassment, flat out.
Harassment.
Yes, and they see it as a deliberate strategy to drag her deeper into this whole conflict, a conflict they argue she really shouldn't be central to.
Okay, so what's their reasoning beyond just calling it harassment?
Their core argument is that the requests in this second subpoena largely overlap with communications she's already produced. So they're saying it's redundant.
Redundant and invasive.
Exactly. It forces unnecessary exposure of, private details without adding much new relevant information, in their view. It feels less like legitimate discovery, the normal evidence gathering, and much more like intimidation.
Intimidation. Wow. So they're not just saying no, they're actively pushing back hard. I saw they're even seeking sanctions. Now, for people listening who aren't familiar, what does that actually mean? How serious is seeking sanctions?
Yeah, that's a really critical point. Seeking sanctions isn't just like a minor complaint. It's a formal request asking the court to impose penalties.
Penalties like what? Fines.
Could be fines, yeah. Or it could even mean restricting the other side, Baldoni's team, from using certain evidence, or maybe even dismissing parts of their arguments. It's serious. It signals they believe there's been major misconduct.
So they're essentially accusing Baldoni's side of abusing the legal process itself.
That's the crux of it. And adding another layer, Ferrer's team claims she faced a lot of online hostility, negative attention, after these filings became public.
And they're blaming Baldoni's camp for that.
They're accusing Baldoni's camp of fueling that fire, maybe intentionally, by making these legal moves so public.
That's a heavy accusation, making it sound like a deliberate pressure tactic. But, okay, Baldoni's side completely rejects this narrative. What's their perspective? How do they justify this second subpoena if Ferrer already provided info?
Well, Baldoni's team paints a very, very different picture. They argue this isn't harassment at all, it's necessity. They claim they tried multiple times to serve Ferrer properly.
Meaning, hand her the legal documents in the standard way.
Right, and they say they reached out to her lawyer, her counsel, several times to coordinate this, but crickets. Got no reply at all. Radio silence.
Okay, so they tried the normal channels first.
According to them, yes. And it was only after those direct attempts allegedly failed that they went to the court asking for permission for something called alternative service.
Right, alternative service. That's when they asked the judge for permission to deliver the documents in a different way, correct?
Yeah.
If they can't physically reach the person or get cooperation.
Precisely. It might mean serving via email or maybe through a lawyer or another method the court approves. Because the standard methods weren't working, or so they argue.
So for them, it's not persecution, it's just practicality, the only way forward.
That's their frame. Not persecution, but necessity. They felt they had no other option to get the information they believe they need for a fair defense. And to counter this harassment claim directly, they made a pretty, let's call it a bold offer.
Oh, what was the offer?
They offered to completely exclude Ferrer's testimony and all her communications from the entire case. Just take her out of it.
Wow. But there's a catch, I assume.
The catch is both sides have to agree to it. Both Baldoni's team and the opposing party in the main lawsuit.
That is quite a move. It feels like they're turning the tables, using Ferrer's team's own argument about privacy against them.
Exactly. They're essentially saying, look, if the real issue here is protecting her privacy and keeping her out of this, why wouldn't you agree to remove her completely?
It puts the ball back in the other court. A real chess move, strategically.
Absolutely. They frame it as simple fairness. If one side in the lawsuit got access to her communications, why shouldn't the other? Their position is, fairness demands equal ground.
And this offer is designed to test whether Ferrer's team genuinely just wants her out, or if maybe there's another reason they're resisting this second subpoena.
It certainly forces the question. It puts the focus on the motivation behind the resistance.
Which brings us to where this gets really interesting and, frankly, a bit murky. Because it stops being just about who followed the rules and starts being about the intent. Was this harassment or just pushing the legal process right to its edge?
That's the ambiguity, isn't it? That blurry line between legitimate legal strategy and, well, abuse or unnecessary pressure. And ultimately, that's where judges decide intent.
Right, because repeated attempts to serve someone could feel like pressure, like they're trying to wear you down.
Or it could genuinely be the only option left if, as Baldoni's team claims, they got total silence from her lawyers. What else are they supposed to do?
Fair point. And similarly, the overlap in what they're asking for.
Yeah, that might look like intimidation, like they're trying to dig into private stuff just because they can. Or it could just be unavoidable. Maybe both sides genuinely need similar pieces of information to build their cases.
It really comes down to the judge looking at the whole picture and deciding what the underlying motive seems to be.
Exactly. Context is everything here.
And the timing of all this adds another layer of complexity, doesn't it? We know that earlier this year, a huge countersuit was dismissed. That narrowed the whole case down significantly.
Change the landscape.
Then, more recently, the judge ruled that some messages could be admissible as evidence, which is always a pivotal moment.
Definitely raises the stakes.
So, with the trial potentially looming, our sources really emphasize that every filing feels strategic. Even something usually standard, like a subpoena, suddenly looks potentially explosive.
It really sharpens the focus on the strategies at play. You can almost see two distinct approaches emerging from the filings.
Okay, what are those?
On Ferrer's side, the strategy seems clear. It's about setting boundaries. They want to keep her out of the main fight, protect her privacy and distance, and if possible, punish what they see as overreach by Baldoni's team through those sanctions.
Keep her walled off, essentially.
Pretty much. Whereas Baldoni's team seems focused on building a clear record. They want documented proof of their outreach attempts, clear motions filed with the court showing they followed procedure, basically establishing the appearance of good faith.
And that bold offer to exclude her fits right into that.
Perfectly. It reinforces their narrative. We tried to be reasonable. We even offered to remove her entirely if everyone agrees. It's all about meticulously building that paper trail, showing they tried everything.
So, what does this all mean for you listening to this? I mean, beyond the legal ins and outs, there's a really compelling human story here, isn't there? It feels very reflective of these high-profile Hollywood disputes.
Oh, absolutely. It's classic human drama playing out in a legal arena. You've got a director trying to defend his reputation in case.
You've got an actor who seems determined not to be pulled any deeper into a messy conflict that might not really involve her directly.
Exactly. And then you have the lawyers skillfully using the rules of procedure almost like weapons. It's a battle amplified by fame, by fans watching every move, dissecting every filing.
Yeah, the courtroom is supposed to strip all that away, right? Get down to just the facts.
That's the ideal. But in cases like this, with so much public scrutiny, the process itself, the motions, the subpoenas, the arguments about procedure, that often becomes part of the drama, part of this spectacle.
So the suspense really builds around these procedural fights. They might seem quiet, technical, but they're clearly going to shape the actual story, the evidence that makes it to trial. How will the judge's decisions here affect what happens next?
It's critical. The whole thing kind of hinges on a few key decisions the court has to make soon.
Like the alternative service request.
Right. If the court says yes, approves alternative service, then Ferrer likely must fight the subpoena directly. She can't just ignore it via her lawyers anymore. That potentially pulls her deeper in.
And the sanctions.
If, on the other hand, the judge grants sanctions against Baldoni's team, that could really restrict Baldoni's defense. It might limit the evidence they can use or impose other penalties, a real blow.
And what about that offer to exclude her? Is that likely?
Well, if somehow both sides in the main case actually agreed to exclude her entirely, then legally she just disappears from the case.
Poof, gone.
Legally, yes, but maybe not from the shadow it casts over the whole narrative, you know? Her involvement, even if formally removed, has become part of the story.
So the judge is facing these clear questions. Is this persistence or is it harassment? Should Ferrer be drawn further into this, or should she finally be released from it? That's a lot riding on these procedural rulings.
A huge amount. And until the judge makes those calls, these subtle but really critical choices, you just have this echo, right? Baldoni's side insisting this is necessary, and Ferrer's side firing back, no, this is punitive.
And the court is left trying to figure out if a subpoena, which usually seems like just standard legal paperwork,
Just paper.
is actually, in this context, a weapon sharp enough to cut the shape of the entire case. We'll leave you with that thought to consider. How can something so procedural become so incredibly pivotal?
A question worth pondering.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.